Monday, March 4th, 2019. We started off in a closed session at 6:30. Council reviewed the closed session of council meeting minutes from February 11th, 2019. Council reviewed one matter regarding a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality respecting the Downtown River Precinct project and provided directions. And I just note that Councillor Gregg wasn't able to attend the closed session, but we see him here now, so that's good. Call for additional business. Anyone? Councillor Koepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two items tonight, one regarding the Owen Sound Police Services Board Service Analysis Review, and the other is FCM funding with Grey Sawville Conservation Authority and the City Partnership.
Thank you. Down here. Go ahead, Carol.
Through Your Worship, I have one item that's relating to a community safety and well-being planning session that will be held at the Public Health Unit March 22nd through the Healthy Communities Group.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, everybody. I have two items. One is on 911 calls, and the second is regarding the mayor's photos.
And others? Okay, staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to discuss the quality of the audio on the Rogers broadcast.
Apparently they'll be able to hear you this time. I'll have a number of items. Oh, I didn't look your way, Kate. Anything in addition? No. I'll have a number of matters that I can cover that I've gone to in the last couple of weeks. So we're down to number 5 in the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Councillor Gregg.
I do have one tonight as it relates to item 12H and relates to my business.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Number 6, confirmation of council minutes.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on February 11th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
And all in favor? That is carried. 6B.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that the minutes of the closed session of the regular council meeting held on February 11th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. 6C.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on February 21st, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? And that is carried. So that covers our minutes from past meetings. Number 7 is a motion to move council into committee of the whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of City staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
All in favor? That is carried. So we are now in committee of the whole. First is a public meeting. Kate, are you excited? You look ready. So we're having a public meeting with regard to the 2019 budget. I now declare that the public meeting is open.
Through Your Worship, notice of the public meeting was provided in accordance with the city's notice bylaw and was posted on the city's website and published in the Sun-Times on February 22nd. No comments were received prior to or since the agenda was published. The personal information collected at the public meeting will be used to complete the budget process. Questions about this collection should be addressed to myself, Brianna Bluefield, City Clerk.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Are we able to get this on that screen? All right, well, as it's coming up, we're here at March 4th, and we're holding our public meeting, which is our final meeting as it relates to the Owen Sound operating and capital budget. It is late this year. However, as you noted this morning and republishing the agenda, we're still receiving information up to the last minute that's impacting the budget. So not a moment too soon or too late. The purpose of tonight's public meeting is to review the final draft of the operating and capital budget and to receive comments from the public as they relate to those. There will be a staff report with a recommendation to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw accepting the 2019 budget as it is presented tonight. To get to where we are now, we started late summer last year. Staff were reviewing and planning and preparing this year's budget. Operating budgets are generally carried forward and then changes are made to reflect current year conditions and service levels. Staff met as a group to present potential recommended and planned capital projects. We then held council meetings at 3 stages to review each component of the budget, and you'll recall the first meeting in January was to review capital. The second meeting, we focused on operating and completed the capital meeting, and then tonight is the final budget meeting to review the completed draft document. This slide summarizes the overall increase. Our overall levy increase is 3.06%. The combined increase after the prior year growth is factored in, as well as the county and school board increases, is now 2.51%, and that was updated most recently this morning. The estimated total increase to the average household with that combined increase factored in would be $88.16 for the year 2019. The next pie chart is one that this council has seen before a few times. It just shows how our operating expenses are broken down by the type of expense. So clearly our greatest expense is salaries and salary-related costs. That's roughly 55% of our budget, or approximately $23 million. The next slide shows what our overall tax burden is by division. So we've got our core services are those sort of smaller pies, with public works and engineering at 18%, community services at 4%, and then police and fire are approximately 47% of our overall tax burden. Our 2019 capital program includes a dedicated increase of 0.9% to the capital spending for 2019. Plus, on top of that, the allocation of matured debenture room totaling $307,000. Currently, the budget anticipates transferring $202,000 to reserves to help offset the capital burden in future years and maintain that level of capital funding for the current year. Some major capital projects in this year's budget: the completion of electrical and water upgrades at Harrison Park and the campground, continuing engineering and starting construction phase of the 10th Street Bridge replacement, the Horseshoe water main upgrades in anticipation of the 10th Street Bridge replacement, Downtown River Precinct Phase 1 design and construction, enhancements to Duncan McClellan Baseball Complex, enhancements to Harrison Park, and the retaining wall replacement at the library and main floor renovations that have just wrapped up. Summary of some changes that have been implemented in this budget over what was presented at our last budget meeting, pre-budget 2. We did receive a notice from OMPF that from the province, that the OMPF will remain virtually the same. I should note that virtually doesn't mean exactly. However, we have left the total funding for OMPF stable with last year's amount. Any small variance between what we are actually entitled to, which we do not know at this point, and what is budgeted, we will hopefully be able to absorb within the budget if it's small enough, or we'll come forward with other sources of funding should it decrease by any other amount. The police budget increase is now 2.25%, and that's down from 3.7% that we presented at pre-budget 2. This was one item that we were updating as late as this morning to reflect our court and security uploading funding agreement that we just received late in the day on Friday. So because that funding actually went up, we were able to reduce the overall levy for police protection down to 2.25% increase over last year. Our original budget anticipated a county budget increase of 2.3%. However, we know now that the county budget is approved at 1.75. We've reduced salary expenses for a change in scope of a non-union position. We reduced winter control materials to $400,000 to reflect the motion that was made at the last meeting, and we removed the funding to the DC Reserve also to reflect a motion that was made at our last meeting. This final slide shows how the tax dollars collected would be allocated. So the average residential taxes in 2019 after the 2.51, excuse me, increase is estimated to be $3,603. So that breaks down to be $688 that goes to the county, $357 that would go to the school boards, and $2,560 are retained for city services. Of that amount, just over $1,000 is for core services. Also, just over $1,000 would go towards police and fire. Approximately $77 a year supports our Union Public Library, and $360 a year from the average household goes towards our entire capital program, as well as debt financing on previous year's capital. And that's it for my public meeting presentation. I'll open the floor to any questions or comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. To the Director, you mentioned that an average household would see an increase of $88.16. For the benefit of those listening at home, can you tell me what an average assessment value would be?
I'd have to do the math, and I'm sorry, I did have this in my head before I came into the meeting. I believe it's $210,000, but let me check on that and I'll confirm before the end of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. I had my mic off. Other questions? Seeing none, so I think we can declare the public meeting closed. And we're moving on to number 9 on the agenda, which is deputations and presentations. And we are happy to have Abby Drimmy here tonight, Fundraising, Media Relations, Special Events Coordinator for the Canadian Mental Health Association of Grey Bruce. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. Again, my name is Abby Drimmy with the Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce Mental Health and Addiction Services. And we're here just to talk about our Toronto Maple Leafs alumni game that is happening on Tuesday, March 12th at the Bayshore Community Centre. We'll have Wendell Clark coming up to Owen Sound to play against CMHA Grey Bruce and Barry's Construction's Wild Wellness Warriors. And we're lucky enough to have Brian O'Leary and Ian Boddy on the team as well. So we're very excited. This is a great fundraising opportunity for the Canadian Mental Health Association. We've got some prizes there as well, so you can win a trip for 2 to Banff, Alberta. WestJet has offered 2 round-trip flights, and that you will be able to stay in Banff for 3 nights as well. Also at the game, you can purchase, the tickets are $18 for adults, $12 for kids, and $100 for a VIP pass, and that'll get you a meet and greet with the players as well. And the last part of the game, so we've got Rogers TV. They will be filming the game live. That will be there, so you can watch it at home or when you are at the game. And 92.3 The Dock, Bayshore Broadcasting, and 101.7 The One will be there as well. And if there's any questions or comments, feel free to email me at adrimmy@cmhagb.org. Thank you very much.
Questions? Go ahead.
Thanks, Amy. Is it okay if I just run through the other team's roster real quick?
Yes, of course, yes.
Okay. Some guy named Wendell Clark is their ringer. Wayne Primo that played for the Owen Sound Platers, Rick Vive, Gary Lehman, Mike Krushelinski, Dave Reed, Greg Johnson, Nathan Barrett, Greg Hotham, Matt Martin, and Mark LaForest. And on our team, I can't give you any more than Mayor Body, because I have to bring in a couple of ringers. I got to get someone to fight Wendell Clark, because I'm not doing it. But I appreciate your presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that's next Tuesday, the 12th. It's at the Bay Shore.
And it's at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. All the proceeds are going to CMHA.
Yes, they're all staying locally with the Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce, to our non-government funded programs.
And you can win a trip for two to Banff.
To Banff, yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Advance tickets, where are they available?
So advance tickets, we do have some of the players on the home team selling those tickets. So we have Velocity Gym, you can purchase your tickets there. Main Street Hair Salon, you can purchase your tickets. If you wanted to, VIP tickets are sold exclusively with the CMHA. We only have about 4 tickets left. But if you wanted to see me after, you can get tickets.
Good.
And the Attack box office is selling the tickets exclusively there as well, so you'd be able to get them there.
So you can get tickets at a whole bunch of businesses that you just mentioned, or the Attack office.
Or the Attack
as well.
box office, yes.
Perfect. So next Tuesday, 7 p.m. I better be there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So number 10 is public question period. If there's anyone here from the public that wishes to ask a council general question, now's the time. I'm seeing nobody going to the microphone. Number 11, correspondence received from which direction of council is required. 11A is correspondence from the Grey County Federation of Agriculture. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd make a motion to receive.
I had put this onto the agenda, and I think I got confused because I thought it was just trying to inform everybody of the politicians' meeting that is coming up, and I will go ahead and meet with the Federation as requested in this. So all in favor of receiving? That is carried. Number 11B is correspondence from the Warden of Grey County with regard to the annual Wardens Forum. On that, they're looking for each council to come up with 2 items that you want to discuss at the Wardens Forum. If you don't have any ideas right now, please send something through to Stacy or to me, and we'll submit them. And I think there's a deadline that would be before our next council meeting. March 15th is the deadline, so that will be next Friday. You've got a couple of topics that you want to discuss at the county level. Should receive that. Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd make a motion to receive.
All in favor? That is carried. Number 12A is report from the Director of Corporate Services with regard to operating and capital budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the report that corresponds to the information in the public meeting, asking for council to direct staff to bring forward the bylaw approving the budget as it is presented.
Thank you.
It summarizes, much of the same information that was just included in my small report. The current budget increase is 3.47%. That's our total budget. The combined increase, once we factor in the county levy and estimated school board levy, is estimated to be 2.51%, and that's slightly less than the 2.9% that council endorsed as an acceptable increase at our last meeting. In 2018, the average single-family residence paid a total taxes of just over $3,500, and if all else remains the same, that residence would see an annual increase of $88.16. And I did just confirm that the average residence would be assessed at $210,000 for those calculations. Attached to this report are 3 tables. One is our segmented budget. That would be the first one. I do like this table. It sort of breaks down by expense category and division, total expenses, as well as sources of funding. The next slide is just showing our tally sheet, so that would be the total tax burden by division, all the way down to our budgeted increase of 2.51%, and how that breaks down on the average household for the municipal, county, and school portion at the bottom. And then the final attached spreadsheet is our capital budget summary by department, including the 5-year forecast and the sources of funding.
Okay. Council, comments, motions? Go ahead, Travis.
Thank you, Worship. I think there's when we look at this, when we went into budget, we went in there with a goal of hitting 2.9%. We had some uncertainties in our mind, what was going to happen with the OMPF funding. We had obviously some increases on our overall salaries. To see that between the days between council and the hard work that staff has put forward on this, to seeing a combined increase at 2.51% is actually quite incredible. When we break this down, I took a look at this further, and we take a look, and we always do 1% of that is being allocated to capital. So that capital is on top of what we normally would spend on capital. That's to increase our spending to go towards, new roadways, increasing funding to be able to pay for infrastructure improvements to our facilities. So we do a lot of things with that with our budgets to take a look at our infrastructure deficit, which obviously every municipality in the province of Ontario needs to really get a handle on. But as we all are aware, we own, 73 different facilities in the city of Owen Sound. Those all require some sort of capital funding to be brought back up to standard. The one thing I did want to pull out from this was when you analyze it and then see what we do, when we break down line by line in the second chart that Ms. Allen had presented, the difference between the raise from taxation was $888,582. When you take a look at that, we use 1% of capital contribution from the tax funded and our fire and police services. That comes to about $665,000. Which actually only represents a pure increase on their overall city budget minus the emergency services around $223,000. So when you take a look that we are already doing 1% allocated into our capital side of it, which is just so that way we are downsizing our infrastructure deficit and paying for our emergency services, which this council has already made some strides at, of working at a motion by Councillor Thomas to see if we can find a partnership with some other municipalities on policing, as well as taking a look at what we just did at our last meeting regarding our fire. So we recognize, I think, as a council that obviously our emergency services are a big factor in our annual budgets. And once again, we can see as our annual increases are coming that 3/4 of our increases annually are coming from our emergency services. And we're allocating that 1% towards capital funding so that way we can have better improvement on our roadways. So I think this is well done. I think at $88.16 to the average household is reasonable when we take a look at what the other surrounding municipalities are doing. I did to try to take a quick look at what some of our surrounding municipalities had already approved. Now these could be skewed a little bit, but South Bruce Peninsula was at 2.75%. Georgian Bluffs had a 4% levy. That wouldn't be including Grey counties, but that would have been, so obviously that's going to drop down to 3, a little bit less than 3. Saugeen Shores was at 3%. Town of Blue Mountains was at 2.2. Meaford was at 3.65. That was their own levy. That wasn't including county. So we're in line with our surrounding municipalities, and I think that's a good, and we're also dedicating funding towards our capital projects. So I'd be more than happy to move the recommendation. I would like to thank staff and the rest of council for those hard days in budget and to try to find some of the cost savings that we could do.
Thank you. Others? Discussion? Councillor Tamming?
Thank you again, Ms. Allen, for your hard work and your department. I am curious, for those who are watching and perhaps present in the room, $3,500 for a single-family dwelling. How does that compare to the rest of Grey Bruce? Or do you know statistically where we find ourselves? Okay.
One report that we would use to compare ourselves to other municipalities is the BMA study. Not all municipalities in Grey Bruce participate in that study. Compared to other municipalities, a single-family residence does pay higher taxes, but we do also have higher level of service and more services provided in this urban center.
Absolutely. And where do we lie relative to Ontario? Are we in the top third percentile for the price of taxes on a single-family home? I'm just curious.
I can't say that off the
Yeah.
top of my head.
Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps I could assist, Your Worship. Certainly, and Ms. Allen is right, the BMA study is the resource we go to most often in this. We are still in the residential side of our business in the higher end of the people in that study, but we're getting much closer to the middle. And I think the perfect spot would be to be towards the high end of the middle. We don't want to be the least expensive place to live in Ontario. I don't think that's the service our residents are asking of council. We also don't want to be at the high end. So we are still towards the high end of the 70-some communities in that study, but they represent the bulk of the population in Ontario. But we're coming down, and I think that's the right mode we're trying to set. If I could say one more thing, Your Worship, I think it goes, we do need to appreciate that the province did in fact listen to our concerns along with other municipalities. And when they don't listen, we certainly mention that. And when they do, I think we need to acknowledge, I think our local member, Minister Walker, certainly was a big assistance to us.
Good, thank you. Others? Seeing none, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Oh, is there opposed? Is one opposed? Councillor Hamley is opposed. Everyone else is in favor. I'm just going to stop here. I haven't done this in a while. If you're watching on Rogers Cable at home and trying to follow along, if you go into the website owensound.ca, then hit City Hall, then hit Mayor and Council, and then go down and hit Agendas, Minutes and Highlights, and hit Council Agendas. You'll be able to find today's date, and all of our reports are there, so you can go in and look at them. So it's owensound.ca, then City Hall, then Mayor and Council, then Agendas. Just if you want to have a look yourself.
Did we pass that?
Sorry?
Did we already do that?
Yep, we passed it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to bring up one more point about that budget that we have passed, and I appreciate council for passing that because I think that's a good budget that we just done. Because at the same point, I think a fact that we forgot to mention was that as well they're putting $200,000 of capital funding in this budget that's being allocated for next year, where we do have several capital projects that are expected to hit in the 2020 year, and we found $200,000 of savings to put in the reserves. That way the taxpayer next year won't have such a huge increase on their taxes to fulfill those capital projects. So I think that's a really important part, that we're also saving money to help get some of these capital projects done more efficiently. That way we're not doing debentures and not pushing this off to the future generations.
Thanks. So to Ms. Allen, to all of staff, thank you very much on behalf of all of us, council, for all the work. It's probably months to get to this point, and as you said, it kept changing. So it's thank you very much. Next on our agenda, 12B, report from consultant with regard to planning technical report for ANPET.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, this is a technical report respecting a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, as well as draft plan of subdivision by ANPET Realty Limited. It is a detailed report. I'll keep my comments brief tonight, as there'll be a full presentation of the application at a proposed public meeting on April 1st. I would note that this report and all the technical background reports are available on our website, owensound.ca, under a tab, What's New. So the purpose of the report is to describe the subject lands and the purpose of the application and outline the policy framework which will be used by council to evaluate the proposals, summarize the process to date, and outline the next steps. The subject lands are located on the west side of 16th Avenue East. They're about 17 acres in size. They have quite a bit of frontage on 10th Street East, although there's no proposed access from 10th Street. There's a small amount of frontage on 16th Avenue, as well as 14th Street, and there's a proposed new road that will go through this subdivision and connect 16th Avenue to the existing terminus of 14th Street, as well as a small cul-de-sac road that extends to the south.
The proposal, based on the December 2018 concept plan, includes that east-west connection of 14th Street, a stormwater management pond area on the north side, just kind of buffering the development from the residential or from the commercial development on 16th Street. The development provides for 321 units, and those include a combination of street townhouses and semis, 81 units, 3 apartment buildings at 120 units. That's the 3 blocks on the south side of the bulb, and then a retirement residence is the first block, the large block with 120 units. Currently, the official plan designates the property low-density residential and open space, and the proposal is to designate the property high, medium, with some low-density residential as well as open space in the area of the stormwater pond. Currently, the property is zoned medium-density residential, or R4. The proposed zoning is R4 with special provisions for the semis and towns and cluster townhouses, R5 in the area of the retirement residence and the multiple apartment blocks, and then again open space for the stormwater management area. In terms of the summary of items that will be that need to be addressed, there's a requirement for revised draft official plan amendment and zoning amendment to make sure the schedules reflect the reduced stormwater management facility as well as the proposed layout of the residential areas. Final design or details on the zoning amendment and official plan amendment. An updated phasing plan. We have to look closely at the parkland dedication. The design details, there's townhouses on the west side of the development abutting the existing residential area to the west, and we just need a bit more detail on the design of that area and confirmation that the revised traffic impact study has been incorporated into the concept design. We'll then use the public meeting as well as agency comments to inform any further issues and consideration. Next steps, so we're recommending that there would be a public meeting on April 1st, agency and public comments, and then a follow-up report back to council. So, Your Worship, the recommendation is that in consideration of the report, that council would receive the report, that you would direct the city clerk to prepare for the public meeting for the official plan amendment, zoning amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. This is the part of the resolution that was updated today. We were missing the draft plan, and that following the public meeting that staff would bring forward a report to council with a recommendation.
Good, thank you. Council? Go ahead, Carol.
When we're changing zoning, for example, there are some parts of this that would depend upon approval from other ministry agencies. Long-term care facility is one. So do we require proof that that has actually occurred, that that approval to operate or to develop a long-term care facility comes along with all of the other documentation before the zoning change actually occurs?
Through you, Your Worship, the applicant has used the words long-term care and retirement residence sort of interchangeably, and the idea would be to zone those large blocks R5. Council's job would be to establish the uses that would be permitted in that R5 zone in those areas. It would be then up to the applicant to determine whether they build a retirement residence, a licensed long-term care facility, or use that block. At this point, they're saying it looks like a retirement residence, but it would also permit the apartment use as well. So usually a zone has a number of permitted uses, so council would establish the policy framework. The details of the development of those blocks would come back through council through a site plan approval application.
Other questions? Councillor Thomas?
I would move the recommendation.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12C, report on next door neighbor.
So right in the same neighborhood, this is again a technical report respecting a proposed zoning bylaw amendment by API Developments. Again, it's a detailed report, and there'll be a full presentation with a public meeting on April 1st, subject to council's approval, and all technical reports, again, are available on the city's website. So again, the purpose of this report is to describe the subject lands and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, provide you with the policy context, which will be used to evaluate the application, outline process, and next steps. So the subject property is an L-shaped property on the west side of 16th Avenue East, located between the 10th Street extension and 16th Street East. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment, the site is currently zoned C2 or retail commercial. There are a number of uses that are permitted, including a hotel as well as retail and office uses as are proposed. The proposal requests the removal of the holding provision, which relates to a contribution of services front-ended by the city. It would also permit the overall development with 131 parking spaces, whereas 182, depending if you use city staff's calculation or the consultant, or 173 are required. They're looking for a front yard setback of 7.65 meters where 10 is required, a height of 23 meters where 18 is permitted. They're also looking to reduce the patio setback from the hotel to the adjacent residential uses. Your Worship, I skipped over the actual proposal, and I just asked the clerk to go to the next drawing if we could. The proposal includes one 6-story hotel development. That's the one that's on the left or further back in the property. It includes 100 hotel rooms as well as meeting conference area. And then there's a 2-story building just along the driveway close to the 16th Avenue frontage. It would have ground floor retail, about 700 square meters, and second floor offices. Again, the report has all the policy framework in which council will evaluate the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. In terms of the summary of items that would be addressed, we'd like to review the traffic impact study and the parking analysis. We'd like to clarify with the applicant some of their findings and assumptions. We want to confirm the parking calculations. They're usually based on area. It includes gross floor area. There can be some exemptions. We just need to clarify our numbers with the applicant. We want to look at the compatibility of the patio with the adjacent uses. We want to look at the shadowing study that would support the increase in height for the hotel, and look at the buffering of the HVAC units on the hotel roof from the adjacent residential area. Again, we would look at public and agency comments and are recommending a public meeting for April 1st, and following that meeting, there would be a report back to council with a recommendation. So, Your Worship, the recommendation for this evening is that council would receive the staff report, that you would ask the city clerk to prepare for a public meeting on April 1st, and that following the public meeting, staff would bring forward a report to council with recommendation.
Good, thank you. Council? Council Gregg?
Thanks, Mayor Body. I will move the recommendation. 1, City Council receive staff report from the community planner respecting the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And 2, the City Council direct the city clerk to prepare for a public meeting on April 1st in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act to consider the zoning bylaw amendment number 28, and 3, that following the public meeting, city staff bring forward a report to council.
Other comments? Discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I know there's a lot of people, sports groups, et cetera, that are looking forward to seeing a new hotel built. 12D, corporate services with regard to Owen Sound Housing Company.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a staff report asking for council to direct staff to bring forward a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign a loan agreement with the Owen Sound Housing Corporation. This is a short-term cash flow funding of $333,000, which will only be used as required to fund the second phase of the construction project of the Owen Sound Housing Company, Full repayment is expected by the end of June, at which time a mortgage would be secured by that organization. The interest rate applied to this loan and all loans associated with the Owen Sound Housing Company is set at 2.64%, which reflects the construction rate financing that we would receive from Infrastructure Ontario.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that recommendation.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. What was it, 90 units? Ms. Allen, did you notice that they're hoping to add?
In this phase, I think it's a smaller number, but the overall project anticipates 90 units upon completion.
Nice to get it done. They're doing great work up there. 12E, I think. Yep. Director of Public Works and Engineering with regard to Public Transit Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a housekeeping item. The provincial government has extended the deadline for all the projects to be completed from March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. It really has zero impact on us since all our projects will be completed in this fiscal year. And it's just, we have to execute the documents and get them back to the provincial government.
I will move that.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have hired a new bylaw enforcement officer, and he started today. His name is Sean Maxwell, and he's worked as an officer for a number of years, and we are excited to have him join our team. The recommendation in the report is to appoint Mr. Maxwell as a bylaw enforcement officer and a property standards officer and remove Ryan Costigan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Owen Sound Minor Soccer is requesting Council's approval to hold a licensed Much Music dance party on May 4th at the Rutherford Room at the Bayshore, and is also asking Council to designate the event as an event of municipal significance. The licensed event will be subject to the standard conditions included in Council's municipal alcohol policy, which includes liability insurance and a requirement for security. In terms of the municipal significance designation, staff have provided you with the points in the policy, and staff are recommending that Council approve the request to designate the event as a municipal significant as per policy, which will enable the group to obtain a special occasion license for the event. So the recommendation, Your Worship, is that Council approve the operation of the licensed event in the Rutherford Hall at the Bayshore Community Centre Saturday, May 4th till 1 a.m. on Sunday, May 5th for the purpose of holding the fundraising dance, that you would approve the bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement and deems the dance as a fundraising dance as an event of municipal significance as per policy CS 80.
Thank you. Council? Anyone? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm hoping I can go to this. I haven't been to a Much Music dance for a while, but yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
Time flies, doesn't it? Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. 12H. Again, Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Worship. This is a request by Jason Bonet of Athletic Locker, and he's looking for Council's approval to use the East Pad at the Julie MacArthur Regional Rec Centre April 7th to 15th for a vendor show that would offer name brand sporting goods. The sale happens Tuesday to Sunday with 2 days of setup in advance and a day of teardown. They're looking to hire 15 to 20 local people to help them with the event, and they would require a hawkers and peddlers license. The facility rental fee was calculated using non-prime and prime hours that they would be using, and is about $7,500 for the hours that they would use. The recommendation is that you would approve Athletic Locker's request to use the arena floor of the East Pad from April 7th to the 15th, and approve a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement.
Thank you. Councillor Merton?
I have a few concerns around this request. Would the term pop-up be appropriate for this kind of venture as a pop-up vendor?
I think we use the term pop-up in the report. Normally, we would call this hawker and peddler, and they would require a municipal hawker and peddler's license to have their show. Things like this, sometimes there's something for golf similar that's happened in other facilities in the city.
So through your worship, I have a concern not about the concept of pop-up or hawker, whatever, peddlers. I have a concern because we want to support the businesses that are already existing in our city. And there are a group of businesses that this may potentially have a negative impact. It takes business away from those we're trying to work with currently. I don't want to single out any particular business, but there are businesses here that deal with sporting goods, shoes. If we're going to entertain the idea of this kind of venture, and I don't think we should close the door to any opportunity, I'm wondering if we could have a policy that would perhaps define a bit more the categories around which, or the principles around which we would entertain this kind of an application. There are services and programs and opportunities. I just have a concern when we're working so hard to keep our businesses here and thriving about the category that may potentially be allowed to come, whether we need to look at it. Not that we want to reduce competition. Competition is healthy, but we're trying to grow our businesses and support our businesses. There are other opportunities maybe that wouldn't perhaps create these challenges.
So I think you're suggesting maybe want to make a motion that we have it raised or a report come to one of the committees. Community Services? Should make sense to follow up on this, to develop some kind of policy. Is that?
Yes, please.
Ms. Bloomfield, did I state that? Yeah, so that's your motion.
That is my motion.
Okay, and to that discussion, Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
Through your worship to the councillor, I'm just wondering if this is your own idea or are you acting on a complaint from a business? Because I know that we've had this discussion with it through the DIA when we have the hottest street sale and all the vendors come into Main Street and there's food being sold and we have restaurants downtown, but we always find that they're not complaining. So it's the same thing that you're talking about, but it's never been an issue.
Through your worship, it did not come as a complaint. It's more a concern, having sat through as a new councillor and listened to the struggles of businesses and listened to the efforts of our city staff to develop a strong relationship with the existing businesses. I have had individuals ask me about the principle around, this bringing in business that may challenge others, but not from a business owner. We want to foster strong relationships, and we're heading into a time when our businesses downtown will be challenged with construction. So just having maybe a policy that may more clearly define it would be helpful.
Councillor Thomas?
I understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to support moving forward on this. I think part of the issue for me is the fact that what this is about us renting one of our facilities to somebody that wants to rent it. And I'm not going to place a judgment on who wants to rent our facilities. This is $8,000 into our coffers at a time when we do struggle sometimes to find people to use our facilities more frequently. I think council and the city in general does a lot to support local business. And I agree with you that competition is a good thing. And I think that, that it's important that we don't get into the business of judging every single applicant who wants to rent a facility based on what we think our city should and shouldn't have. And I mean, it takes me back actually to my days as a reporter here in Owen Sound when when a fellow showed up here at the city one time and all he wanted to do was have a sausage wagon down in the little parkette just outside of City Hall here. And the uproar over that application, because that guy was not going to be paying the same taxes as the restaurants on Main Street. And at the end of the day, I think it was some years before we actually resolved that one, and there was a guy selling sausages, and it didn't take away from anybody's business downtown. You know, I just think it's a slippery slope if we start getting into determining who's going to rent our facilities based on what we think is good or bad for the community. I mean, clearly there are some examples we could dredge up that where we would want to step in, but I don't think that this is one of them for me.
Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. Oftentimes, sports groups will ask for these types of sales, and this is a business we're in, renting our facilities. One thing I do like about this is they say they're going to hire 10 to 20 local temporary workers, so that's a few jobs for a few people, so that's a good thing that comes out of this.
Anyone else? Okay, I will support the motion because it's not specifically, we haven't raised the motion of this report that's in front of us, but going forward, should we have some kind of a thought process discussion at one of our groups, then I think it should be done. So I will be supporting it, depending how the vote goes. So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Looks like 2 of us opposed. Everyone else, that's defeated. Okay, so if we can go back to the recommendation that is before us. Councillor Thomas?
I'd move that recommendation.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. 12I, Director of Corporate Services with regard to Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an annual report that we are required to give every year summarizing council remuneration and expenses for the year. I won't go through line by line, but we basically detail which every councillor and mayor position has earned in 2018, as well as the expenses. Roughly, we budget on a basis of $3,500 per councillor for expenses. It is expected that some councillors spend more, some councillors spend less, and we allocate those funds depending on where the needs are. Overall, our council remuneration and expenses did come in under budget by $3,000 in 2018.
Thank you. Motions, discussion. Councillor Thomas?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So we're down to the consent agenda. Go ahead.
Through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening is a report respecting the 2nd Annual Pride Parade and a report respecting the Police Service's 20th Annual Polar Bear Plunge. There are minutes for receipt from the Owen Sound Nonprofit Housing Corporation and the Owen Sound Housing Company. Business licenses were issued to Tots at 1088 3rd Ave East, The Exchange at 825 2nd Ave East, and Boards and Steel at 1380 2nd Ave East. Lastly, there's correspondence which is presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 13F.
Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13F on the consent agenda dated March 4th, 2019, and further that the recommendations contained in reports 13A and 13B be approved.
All in favor? That is carried. Minutes from boards with regard to Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing for October 30th, December 11th, January 15th. Who attends those? There must be somebody in council that's on them. Is there not?
I think Councillor Merton will be, but these minutes, it was before her time, so we don't have anyone on council that was covering those.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm just reporting them then. Did I call the question? I did call the question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to jump back here for a second just to congratulate Ryan Brown on his putting forward the 2nd Annual Pride Parade, as well as congratulate the Owen Sound Police Services for this is the 20th Annual Polar Bear Plunge. I know Mayor Boddy has done it in the past, I have done it in the past, and it's a great fundraiser for the Special Olympics.
So you're suggesting it's someone else's turn this year?
I think Deputy Mayor O'Leary probably has it up his alley there, maybe.
I think I know a guy sitting here that would probably cheer on Deputy Mayor O'Leary if he was to do the polar bear plunge. Looks like something we're going to have to work on.
I don't see the humor at all.
Oh, everyone needs to do it at least once. Okay, I'm going to go down to number 14A, Minutes of Community Services Committee meeting held from February 20th, 2019.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pam Coulter and her staff provided the committee with an orientation that included a PowerPoint presentation showing 2018 highlights and 2019 work plans. Ice and floor times have increased by 1.5% for 2019 and 20. Of note, the city's 2016 service review found that while the city's ice rates are slightly higher than surrounding municipalities, the rates are consistent with similar-sized municipalities who offer the same services. For an example, our non-prime youth rates will increase $1.36 in 2019 and $1.37 in 2020. 2017 was the first year of a multi-year program for energy management in the capital forecast. Staff have been tracking utility consumption in all city-owned facilities. This includes hydro, natural gas, and water, wastewater services. The tracking of the utilities will also help staff when applying for grants, rebates, and incentive programs. Just to give an example, at the Bayshore Community Center, the 2018 operating cost for hydro was $41,126 less than in 2017. This is a big win for the energy management program at the Bayshore. We're not only saving the city thousands of dollars, we now have the cost comparisons and charts to track the success of the program. So thanks to Pam Coulter and her staff, in particular Kristen Schreider, who is the lead staff member in charge of that program. And finally, we had a request from the Owen Sound Skating Club for community boards at the Julie MacArthur Rec Center. The recommendation calls for staff to secure a sponsor and install 4 bulletin boards on the ground level entrance hall of the rec center. And with that, Your Worship, I would move approval of those minutes.
Any questions for Deputy Mayor Wright? O'Leary? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Next is 14B, Minutes of Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you, Your Worship. Similar to Community Services, we got an overview from the Director of Community Services. Actually, no, it was Mr. Fisher, Manager of Community Services, Manager of Community Development, sorry. Not there yet. So Brent gave an overview of what was going on with economic development and tourism, some of the positives and achievements and success stories of the 2018. Those included Moving Forward video series. We've seen those here at Council. The 2018 Are You Most campaign, which we won an EDCO Innovative Community Award. Harborfest, Bruce Power Suppliers that have relocated to Owen Sound. Savor Owen Sound was a great success in 2018. We did some visitor center rebranding, as well as some brand consistency. So those are some of the highlights from between economic development and tourism in the 2018 year. In the 2019, some of the plans to go forward, the work plans, was continuing to leverage a partnership with Grey County Tourism, modernizing our city's tourism website, working on a Corkscrew City 2.0 tour, future Moving Forward video series, OSDIA marketing events, and a further marketing campaign. We also touched base with another report that came back to committee regarding the beautification of the downtown storefronts. Back in the fall, we had, I'm sorry, my thing erased everything I had. Back in the fall, we sent out a message to the downtown vacant storefront building owners, a request to see if they'd be interested in going with a program with some of the art galleries located in the downtown core to send up sort of a beautification of their storefronts. One, to also make it beautify the store, but as well give an opportunity to showcase some of our art galleries that we have in the downtown core. So it was two-way street, one beautify our downtown core and one to highlight some of the galleries as much as we can. From that initial response that we sent out to the vacant building owners, we received one piece of feedback from a building owner who was actually interested in the deal, which I thought was very disappointing. Some of the comments that came back from the building owners after staff reapproached them after a motion from Councillor Merton, that we reapproach some of these building owners to see if there was something that would be they'd be more interested in. And some of the concerns that they had about putting artwork into the vacant storefront windows was that here, I need to read these. Some of them felt that maybe that they would be off-putting, that people wouldn't realize that the store was vacant. Some of them felt that it would actually be harder to rent out the space, and then there were some insurance concerns regarding third-party artwork in the building. So staff went back and took a look at a different option, and one of the options that they came up with was putting together a development toolkit for landlords that have the availability that they would be able to come into City Hall, and it'd be up to them if they decided to be a partner with this toolkit. And it consisted of some custom paper that was, I wish I had a photo of it, because the way that Carly and Melissa had organized that, it looks amazing. It would be something to replace that the cardboard paper that's currently in the windows, with a little more catchier slogans and kind of really emphasizing that the space isn't vacant, it's opportunity, I think, with some of the slogans that were coming from it. Along with that, it would be an information sheet that features some of the available lands and buildings, and another further resource that outlined information on the city's community improvement plan, so facade and structural improvement grants, etc., to help beautify the downtown core. So that was an initiative that came from economic development, and I believe staff has found a really good solution to offer some of our vacant storefronts an option to beautify the downtown core. And with that, Your Worship, I would move approval of those minutes. Oh, sorry. I should highlight, Savour and Owen Sound is still ongoing until March 30th. If you haven't been a part of this yet, you'd need to go at least try some of the restaurants. Stone Tree, Oregano Bistro, Bishop's Landing, Sabitris, Jasmine's, Sweetwater, Mudtown, Mr. Khan's Euro and Fish and Corner, Nathaniel's, Yummy Yummy, Casero, Freshie, and Elsie's Diner are all participants this year. There's a Facebook contest going on this year where you can share the city's post for a chance to win a $50 gift certificate to one of the restaurants. And each week the city will feature 2 restaurants on their Facebook page, and you have a chance to win those $50 gift cards. So with that, Your Worship, I would move approval of these minutes.
Questions? Questions for, go ahead.
Thanks, everybody. I do have one question. I just wondered if the committee kicked around the idea of, when I go to a place like Collingwood, it just jumps out at me, or different downtowns where they have really good signboards, or maybe call it wayfinding signage, but they're well done, they're well used, they're placed well in terms of the downtown for people to see and read on where different stores or restaurants or facilities are. Is that something that was considered within the committee, to incorporate something like that in terms of one of the window signs, and have something like that placed internally every block as opposed to externally, which you see in other downtowns?
Go ahead, Ms. Coulter.
Through Your Worship, we don't have anything in the budget to develop that signage or in the work plan, but certainly in 2020, we could look at doing that sort of directional signage kiosks. I know the kiosks are downtown, and maybe we could use those. And
something that would have really fallen under the umbrella of the DIA in past years, I would think.
If I could, Your Worship, I believe that's probably where we will see that initiative come forward in our new partnership with the DIA. Whether we can do that in 2019 might be a little ambitious, but absolutely, I see that something working together with a willing partner we will certainly do in 2020.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. That's approving the minutes of economic development from February 15th. All in favor? That is carried. 14C, Minutes of Operations Committee from February 12th.
Thanks, Mayor Body. The February committee meeting, first we reviewed a letter which council is familiar with. It was sent from council back to committee for review, requesting water for residential use on the East Hill, south of the city. While the water supply does extend south of the city limits as far as Stone Tree, it is not a service extension which is in new or outstanding condition. The new connections or any new connections to the service could add some instability or contribute to more expensive servicing and or the repair needs. So thus committee is not recommending that the connection to this residence would be prudent. We had the December airport report. This was now at the end of the year. Annually, we were able to see that our fuel sales were down very slightly at approximately 220 liters for jet fuel and regular type fuel consumption. So, I mean, that's, approximately $200 in revenue on both sides of the table there, down from 2017. We had the initial January airport report. Both informative reports were received by committee. We've also now started to allocate funds for the street pole lighting replacement in our downtown. The current poles date to 1999 and were part of the original Big Dig reconstruction of the downtown. And unfortunately, as the units were purchased at the time, were very prone to corrosion, resulting in a unfortunately, the street poles spend a lot of time during the year in the snowbank, and they're exposed to salt, and they've corroded at a high rate. So it has resulted in a shortened lifespan, and as council's aware of, we have placed funds into the budget to start replacing these street poles starting in 2018. The project, or the challenge in front of us now, was to decide on the proper style of pole replacement that we would like to proceed with. I'm not sure if the clerk has the image just to compare. The committee had it in the information package. Yeah, that's a good shot there. I'm going to read from the minutes what the committee has recommended to council, and that is to approve the Washington-style concrete reinforced Eclipse black solid colored pole. So we've got a new concrete reinforced pole. Recommends that City Council approve the Washington-style solid state LED style dark sky compliant pole top luminaire. What's interesting here is it's an LED, it's downward facing. The light direction is continuous with what we're always, advocating for or placing within our site plan approvals, where we're requesting downward facing lighting. So this is something that is within that instrument there, and that committee recommends City Council approve the gold paint finial for the downtown decorative pole top luminaire. So you're seeing black there. We had an option with some gold, and if we had any questions on these at this time, I might just break my report, and the questions could be asked of Dennis if he would like to explain anything further. But that's the direction of the committee. It's, however, with the gold paint finish, and what you're seeing there is just the black, the all black. So we're comparing the two Washington styles. George Washington's the founding father to the south of us, but that's the name and the design there. Question?
Councillor Koepke?
Not so much a question, but just an explanation. The finial is the little top part, which is gold, and the other part that's gold are the things around the lamp. Is that correct, Dennis? Those little strips. So the rest is black. So it's not all gold.
Yep. So that's next question.
Was that the only other color? Like, was there other colors?
Through your worship, no, there was black with the slight gold decorative treatment.
Thank you. Sorry, that was an inside joke. I just don't understand why we have to have these discussions on color. Like, just make a decision on that school. But that's good. I'm happy with this.
Oh, you should have been around. We picked the color of the buses.
Yeah, management had really done a good job in really narrowing the options down here for the committee to look upon. So that is the recommendation of committee as to the style moving forward. And like I say, I mean, this is procedurally in terms of how we're going to be replacing these throughout the downtown, but that will be our chosen style to proceed with. Committee also received for information purposes the 2018 transit update. Of note, ridership declined slightly over 2017, which we believe is due to the extended 3rd Avenue East closure for reconstruction and to an increased ridership on mobility transit. As you all are aware, the city was also awarded a $1.44 million grant to operate a daily Owen Sound to Guelph route, and work continues on those implementation details at this time. And committee received the 2018 annual report on the city water system. Particulars include total treated water production was up 3.9% over 2017, and the billed consumption was down 1.05%. We had 5 adverse reports, down from 8 in 2017. These consisted of 2 low-pressure negative conditions, 1 low chlorine residual, and 1 elevated bacteriological sample, and 1 pump failure. The 2 low negative pressure conditions, one was January 6th, I think, from memory, when we lost the main line close to Hobart's. And then later in the year, we lost another main line right at 10th Street, I believe it was. So those were the 2 large events that are spoken of or referred to in the drinking water report. We had a drinking water inspection done by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change in December, which resulted in a rating of 96.13%. That's similar to other years. Our water distribution resulted in 20 main breaks. That's up 3 from 2017. We had more services running water to prevent freeze up from 2017. I think it was approximately 200, which is a far cry from what we had in 2015. However, at times last winter it was a little colder than 17, and this is a preventative measure that we've learned from over previous years. As to a methodology is in place to decide on how many below freezing or a certain level of days get reached before we, by neighborhood or by residents, we start to incorporate the run your water measures to prevent freeze up. And lastly, I guess the main thing is the unaccounted for water was 22.1%, up from 20.5% in 2017. This is up a little bit, but interestingly enough, timing-wise, pretty much the week of this committee meeting, staff had just located and resolved 3 east side leaks of significance. I believe it was 3. I could be corrected by Dennis. All up on the East Hill, I believe. Very hard to find, but these all make a difference, and they all add up. And every time we've got leakage, I mean, I should add 15% is perhaps a goal. We've got an old distribution system, and I mean, we're quite a ways above 15, but any steps we can take to work our way out of the 20s is positive here, because ultimately it has a negative impact on your roadways, your surfaces. Everything's freeze thaw, and it's hard on things. So, and lastly, I should note that our supervisor of our roads and services, Jeff Follis, recently achieved the Certified Road Supervisor Intermediate Certification. This is quite significant, and it's important, I think, that council recognizes Jeff's work, and in achieving this certification, he is the first person, I believe, to accomplish this achievement. So council congratulates Jeff Follis in the accomplishment which he's achieved. So with that, I would move approval of the minutes and the recommendations contained therein.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So we're down to number 15, matters postponed, for which we have none. 16, no motions previously given. Discussion of additional business. I'm going to start with Mr. Ritchie with staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been made aware by a number of people, my mother being one, that the volume of our meetings, perhaps the sound quality has not been good. Mr. Hilliker and the Rogers technicians have looked at it this last several weeks. They believe they have it fixed. Mr. Fisher's at home and tells me tonight it sounds good, but certainly we're hoping it's good. We pride ourselves on our presentations. If by chance it's not good, please give me an email at feedback@owensound.ca and I will make sure our technicians are aware it's not quite as good as they told me it was. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Kepke, you have 2 items.
I do, Your Worship, thank you. The Owen Sound Police Services Board and Administration have completed their review of the service analysis report conducted by Joe Levesque and will be meeting with Mr. Levesque to review the recommendations on March the 18th. Following this review, a report will be presented to Council on the findings. Second item is Grace Alba Conservation Authority and the City are partners in receipt of funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Climate Change Staffing Grants Initiative to help address staffing gaps and increase our capacity to adapt to the effects of climate change or reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This funding will be used to dedicate staff in partnership with Grace Alba Conservation Authority to activities such as ground truthing initiatives, creating digital elevation models and contours, researching climate change initiatives, and creating a climate adaptation plan. Owen Sound is among 59 communities across Canada benefiting from this initiative.
Thank you. Councillor Merton.
Through Your Worship, there will be on March 22nd a meeting at the Public Health Unit regarding community safety and well-being planning. This is a meeting of community groups, partnerships, and the invitation has been extended, I believe, to Council as well and other municipalities. Just a little bit of background around this. Recently, there have been some mandated legislative changes that will require municipalities to take a leadership role in planning and developing a planning document for community safety and well-being. This legislative requirement will also be affiliated with police services, and it will focus certainly on community safety and well-being. The plan has to be developed and ready to implement, if not already implemented, by 2021. And I know that our city staff are actually very aware and will be attending webinars to get a jump start on this planning. There probably will be additional information brought forward to the Council about this, and certainly opportunities for public input and linking with our existing community groups to help to develop this plan. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Can I just ask what time that meeting is?
Yes, it will go from 8 till 11. Registration starts at 8, refreshments at 8:30, and then from then on, the session will go to approximately 11.
Okay. Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, Mayor Bai. Last council meeting, Deputy Mayor O'Leary filled in nicely for you, and I had noted in the police minutes that it came forward a couple of calls that went into our 911 service, and I didn't ask that night because I thought, well, the Deputy Mayor is doing a fine job, and I thought he might be focused on the mayoral role. But I'm wondering, in light of, because I think that might have been the night a young girl went missing, and it escapes me right now what the alert is called when it goes, the Amber Alert goes out, and I was flabbergasted and disappointed and disgusted in the nature of people to call 911 with complaints about such a matter of significance as that. I don't think I struggle to find words to adequately describe it. And it took me back to the question I was going to ask that night on our own 911 calls that had went in that were pretty frivolous. Do we have a charge in place that we charge people for making these frivolous, and I think that's a pretty good term, and maybe that's polite in some of the cases, complaints through the 911 system, because it is simply not constructed for that?
I'm looking at Councillor Tamming, and he can maybe, it's a little bit out of our area of expertise, certainly out of yours, but under the criminal code, if you were to make a false accusation, I don't think that's quite what you're talking about, though. You're talking about frivolous calls. You're not talking about mischief calls, although it might border on that. We wouldn't, I don't think, have a bylaw within the city's bylaws to cover that.
You wish, Your Worship, we'll certainly look into it and have information for council at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest.
Okay, sure, thank you. And secondly, I'm just wondering, there had been some discussion on the historical mayor's photos, which were positioned outside of the chambers previous to the renovations. Then we had some discussion on, there's some signage and some other decisions to yet be made, and we would be revisiting. So I'm just wondering where we're at with those decisions at this time.
Ms. Coulter, go ahead.
Through Your Worship, the mock-up of the signage, the directional signage, will be in place in the next couple of weeks. It's on order. There'll be a few different styles. People will be asked to provide feedback on what they like. They're working on the branding initiatives for behind the two main service counters, and then following that, we'll look back to those other items that are to be replaced on the walls as per the report that went to the ad hoc.
Anything else? I think that brings it down to me. I've had a busy couple of weeks, starting with 27th Annual Mariners Church Service at St. George's Church, which was a couple of weeks ago. That's kind of the sign that spring is coming. It's a blessing of the Great Lakes fleets. All of the flags from the different shipping companies are hung there, and it's really a special service at the church, and it was a pleasure to attend again. I attended the auto show 2 weekends ago with Cobble Beach. That's Canadian International Auto Show. Cobble Beach has an art in the automobile display, which is really becoming one of the premier displays at the auto show. There was 13 cars and icons, like one-of-a-kind cars, some really, really special ones. So it was great to go down there for a couple of days, and when I went there the first time 4 years ago, nobody knew where Owen Sound was, Cobble Beach was, the car show, golf courses, anything like that. And now as people are coming through, they've been to the car show, they've been to Owen Sound, they've been in the area, they're looking forward to coming, they want to know where they're going to be staying. And it's really grown over 4 or 5 years. So thank you to Cobble Beach for giving us the opportunity to promote Gray and Bruce and Owen Sound and George Bluffs and the whole area. Councillor Deputy Mayor O'Leary and I attended the Good Roads Conference this weekend. The highlight for me was one of the sessions was called Building a Future, Rural Infrastructure and Regional Economic Development. It was put on by Ryan Graham and Grey County, former Grey County employee Ashley Whedon. They're both doing their PhD in rural economic development at Guelph. I'm confident that Ashley, she's just brilliant, is a rising star that anyone ever looking at rural economic development in the future are going to be talking about her and her findings and where she goes. It was really an impressive event. Some of us in council bowled on Friday night for Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's a good cause. Friday afternoon attended the AGM, Annual General Meeting of the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. A couple of things jumped out at me there. 29,000 acres of land are held by our Conservation Authority and protected. That's 10% of all the land held by all of the conservation authorities across Ontario, of which there's 36. They run with only 7% of the budget being contributed to from the province. It was cut back in 1996 and has not been added to since. And they do a really big role on protecting our nature. When you think about it, when you've got the conservation authorities, you've got Sydenham sportsmen that are doing good work in conservation, Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, which was the next event, Niagara Escarpment. We've got some of the best, most protected natural settings and water and everything in Ontario, and that certainly pays off in economic development and tourism and all those things that people want to come here and see those things because they are protected. So it's a big thank you to the Conservation Authority, to the Federation of Anglers and Hunters. So I attended their event Saturday night, big fundraiser, big dinner, and they do a lot of good work in partnership with Conservation Authority. There's just so many groups working together, field naturalists that make it work around here. We attended the swearing in of new Police Chief Craig Ambrose. This is irrelevant, it's got nothing to do with me, but just remember, Wyden only said 6 more weeks. That means we've only got 2 more weeks to go. I hope it gets it out of its system tonight. I want to thank Deputy Mayor O'Leary for sitting in and doing a great job when I was away a couple of weeks ago on the 11th and keeping council under control. That's all the additional business. Motion that the Committee of the Whole rise.
Moved by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Motion to adopt proceedings in Committee of the Whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Notices of motion. Anyone have any notices that they're giving tonight? Seeing none. Number 21, bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Your Worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to adopt policy number CRS HR 65, customer service standards, bylaw to authorize the city treasurer to issue internal debentures against the Georgian Bay Energy Reserve for 3rd Ave East reconstruction, CP station upgrade, cemetery columbarium, and parking deficit. A bylaw to amend the appointed officers bylaw to appoint a bylaw enforcement officer and property standards officer. A bylaw to execute a 3rd amending site plan agreement with Sydenham Properties for 89th Street East. A bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw respecting ice and floor rental rates. A bylaw to execute partnership agreement with the Grey Bruce Home Buildings Association and the Knights of Columbus respecting the Home and Cottage Expo. And a bylaw to execute an agreement with Sydenham Properties respecting a 2nd extension of time for payment of development charges.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Merton, that bylaw numbers 2019-033, 2019-034, 2019-035, 2019-036, 2019-037, 2019-038, 2019-039, and 2019-040 be passed and enacted.
All in favor? And that is carried, so that completes our business for tonight. It is approximately 8:30 p.m. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.